At exactly 9:30 at night, there was a knock at the door, while no one in the entire village was awake. And as soon as she opened the door, there was no one outside, but someone had entered the house. Hello, friends. Today's story is not about just one house. It's the story of a village, where people accidentally called back those who should never have returned to this world. This incident happened in 2018. A small village nestled among the hills of northeast India, surrounded by tea gardens, with fog always hanging above and such silence below that even the sound of your own breath becomes frightening. I will not reveal the village's real name, because even today, the locals do not speak openly about this incident. There were about 40 houses in the village, and around 200 people lived there. Everyone knew each other by name. If there was a wedding at someone's house, the whole village would participate. If someone died, the whole village would mourn. But this village had something strange. After evening, no one would go out alone. Children were taught from a young age. After the sun sets, the paths shrink, and the shadows grow long. This story begins with a girl. Her name was Madhavi. Madhavi studied in college, and every evening she would sit alone in her room to study. Her room was right next to the front door of the house, meaning if anyone knocked, she would hear it first. It was a winter night. Everyone in the house had eaten and gone to their rooms. The clock showed 9:32. Madhavi was sitting at the table studying, when suddenly, knock, knock, a very light knock came at the door. So light that at first she thought it might be the wind. But then, knock, knock. This time the sound was clear. Madhavi's hand froze on the book. She looked at the clock. 9:33. No one knocks at doors in the village at this hour. She thought, Papa will open it. But the house was completely silent. The knocking came again, this time a little louder. Madhavi got up and slowly went toward the door. She didn't want to open it at all, because for the past few days, strange events had been happening in the village. People were saying, some saw a woman on the road at night, some heard someone crying near the trees. But still, for some unknown reason, it felt like something was pulling her. She unlocked the door, opened it slowly. Outside there was only fog, so dense that she couldn't even see the tree in front. No one. Madhavi immediately wanted to close the door. Then a sound came from inside the house, from the kitchen, like a utensil had fallen. Madhavi's heart started racing. She ran inside. The kitchen light was on, and what she saw made her legs go weak. Her mother was sitting on the floor, biting her own hand with her teeth. Blood was dripping onto the floor. Her mother's eyes were completely red, and she was looking as if there was an enemy standing in front of her, not her daughter. Madhavi screamed. Hearing her, her father ran in. As soon as he saw this, his hands started trembling. He tried to take her mother's hand away, but she was jerking it with abnormal strength, as if someone else was inside her. That night, for the first time, the entire village gathered outside the house, and from there began the story of the curse, which had started many years ago. But even before this incident, a lot had already happened in the village, and it all began with a wedding, about a month before. A girl from the village was getting married. The whole village was happy. On the wedding day, the groom's procession was coming from a nearby town. Outside the village, there was an old school. It was customary for the procession to stop there first, and then enter the village. That day, the procession stopped there in the evening as usual. The sun had set. Near the school, there was a very old banyan tree. The villagers never went near that tree at night, but the people in the procession didn't know this. A relative of the groom, while talking on the phone, went a little away from the school. He reached near the tree and stood there talking. Then, he felt someone approaching from behind. He turned around. Through the fog stood two girls, in white clothes. They seemed about 20 to 22 years old. They said, "We also want to go to the wedding. Will you take us along?" The man found it strange. He said, "You're from your own village. Why are you asking me?" The second girl said, "Just say yes or no. Will you take us or not?" The man felt scared. He quickly said, "Okay, let's go," and he returned to the procession. He thought the matter was over, but it wasn't. From there, someone else had also started following him. And that very night, what happened at the wedding canopy changed the lives of the entire village. In the previous part, you heard The wedding procession had stopped outside the village. Near the banyan tree, two strange girls appeared, and unknowingly, they were invited into the village. But at that time, no one knew that the price of that one yes was something the entire village would have to pay. By the time the procession entered the village, the night had completely fallen. A cold wind was blowing, and the fog was so dense that even the torchlight seemed dim. In the middle of the village, the wedding canopy was set up. Drums were beating, women were singing, children running here and there. Everything seemed completely normal. The bride, named Kieran, was sitting in the canopy. There was a slight nervousness on her face, but that happens with every bride, so no one paid attention. The priest was chanting mantras, when suddenly Kieran turned her head. Her gaze went outside the canopy, straight toward the path from where the procession had entered. She stared there for a while. Her friends asked, "What happened?" Kieran whispered, "Someone called me by name." Everyone laughed. One friend said, "It's a wedding. Everyone must be calling you." But Kieran shook her head. "No, this voice. I recognize it." "Whose?" Kieran didn't answer. A few seconds later she said, "It was grandmother's voice." Everyone fell silent, because her grandmother had died 2 years ago. Her friends tried to reason with her. "You're just nervous. That's why it seems so." Kieran returned to the canopy. But something had changed. Her face had turned completely rigid. She wasn't talking to anyone. Her lips were pressed tightly, as if her teeth were locked. The priest started the next mantra. Then, Kieran suddenly stood up. Without saying a word, she began walking out of the canopy. Everyone thought, maybe she's gonna cry. That happens at weddings. But then, her scream rang out, so loud that even the sound of the drums stopped. Everyone ran outside, and what they saw, no one had ever imagined. Kieran was hanging in the air above the ground, about 3 to 4 feet, her hair hanging down, her eyes completely white, and she was laughing, a laugh that could not belong to a human. Then, a voice spoke. But it wasn't Kieran's voice. 2 voices speaking at the same time. "You called us, and now you don't recognize us?" People stepped back in fear. The priest began chanting, but his voice was trembling. Then the voice spoke again. "You said, you cannot come inside the village. Today, you yourself called us in. Now no one will survive." Kieran's body jerked and spun in the air. She looked directly toward the canopy and said, "This wedding will not happen." As soon as she said that, she fell violently to the ground. Unconscious. Silence all around. No one knew what to do. The groom's family was terrified. They immediately stopped the wedding. The groom's father said, "This is not right. We cannot proceed with this marriage." The procession returned the same night. The villagers took Kieran home. When she regained consciousness, everything was explained to her. She remained silent for a while. Then suddenly she began to cry. So much that no one had ever seen before. She said only one thing: "I didn't do anything. I didn't call anyone." That night, Kieran locked herself in her room. And in the morning, her lifeless body was found. She had hanged herself. After that day, everything in the village changed. Earlier, people did not go out in the evening. Now people didn't go alone even during the day. And strange events began. The first incident happened to the village's elderly coward. He used to milk the cows every morning. One day, while milking, instead of milk, red liquid came out. At first he thought it might be an injury. But when he touched it, it was blood. He was terrified. He ran to call people. Everyone came, but no one could understand. Some said it was disease. Some said it was the evil eye. That day he went to the town and returned with medicine from a doctor. By evening he reached near the school at the edge of the village. The road was deserted. Then he saw someone standing ahead. A woman in red clothes, bride's clothes. He slowly approached, and as the moonlight fell on her face, he dropped the medicine. It was Kieran. The same face, the same eyes, but the smile, terrifying. He ran straight into the school and hid there all night. In the morning, he came back to the village and told everyone. People said it must have been a hallucination from fear. But after that, he wasn't the only one who saw her. Every other day, someone would say she was standing on the road, someone was crying near the tree, someone called my name, and then the worst began. 3 women in the village were pregnant. The first lost her child during delivery. The second's child died 3 days later. The third never gave birth. Cows fell ill, children fell ill, People fell ill. Fear spread across the village. Then one day the incident happened with Madhavi's mother, which would become the most dangerous turn in this story. And after that, the village realized that all of this was not the work of a spirit, but revenge. And that revenge had begun many years ago. In the previous part, you heard what happened on Kiran's wedding day. After that, strange events began throughout the village. Cow's milk turned into blood, the bride started appearing at night, and several children died. But the real terror was just beginning, because what was about to happen was going to happen inside one house. And in that house lived Madhavi. The same night when there was a knock at the door, and she saw her mother in the kitchen in that state. That very night was going to change the fate of the entire village. That night, when Madhavi's mother was brought into the room, even 4 men together could not hold her. Her strength had become abnormal. Her left hand, the one she had been biting, was completely swollen. It seemed as if something was moving inside. Madhavi's father panicked and said, "Call someone, a witch doctor, a priest. Do something." The villagers gathered, but the problem was, in the past month, the village had called 3 different tantrics, and all 3 had said the same thing: this is not an ordinary matter. Yet that night, an elderly man was called. His name was Dharamdas Kaka. He was considered the oldest among the exorcists living in the mountains. People said he could communicate with spirits. When Dharamdas Kaka arrived at the house, he stopped as soon as he stepped inside. He said nothing. He just looked at the floor. Then slowly he said, "Something has entered the house." Everyone was silent. Madhavi's father asked, "What is it?" Dharamdas Kaka did not answer. He opened his small bag and took out a small drum-like instrument. In the mountains, it is called a dangro. They say he would play it to remember his guru. He placed a seat in the center of the house, lit a lamp, and started playing the dangro. Gradually, the sound began echoing throughout the house. Dak, dak, dak. 4 people were holding Madhavi's mother down. Suddenly, something flew out from the ceiling. Everyone looked up. 3 bats, spinning rapidly, flew directly over Dharamdas Kaka. At the same time, the lamp went out. Darkness in the room, only the sound of the dangro. Then, that sound also stopped. Everyone saw Dharamdas Kaka's body trembling. His eyes were closed. And then, he began to speak. But it wasn't his voice, it was a woman's voice. And not 1, but 2 voices. "You cannot stop us. Not even your guru could stop us. The one you bound has come today by herself." Madhavi's father cried. "Who are you? What do you want?" The voice laughed. "You called us. Now suffer. The hand you touched, that hand will go." Everyone's eyes went to Madhavi's mother's hand. It had swollen even more. Dharamdas Kaka suddenly fell to the ground. The dangro fell away. Everyone ran to him. After about half an hour, he regained consciousness. As soon as he got up, he asked for water. One after another, he drank the whole loda. Then he said, "I cannot do it. This is beyond my power. This is a very ancient force, and it is not confined to one house. The whole village has entered it." Hearing this, everyone was stunned. Madhavi's father asked, "What should we do now?" Dharamdas Kaka said, "If anyone can save it, it will not be from here. Bring someone from outside." That night, no one slept. As soon as morning came, an old friend of Madhavi's father arrived. Everything was explained to him. He remained silent for a while, then said, "There is a man." Everyone asked together, "Who?" He said, "I cannot say for sure, but people say he has a unique power." Madhavi's father asked, "Where is he?" He said, "In a nearby mountain village." But he doesn't call himself a sage. People think he is mad. But whoever asked for his help never returned empty-handed. Madhavi's father immediately said, "Let's go, right now." Madhavi went with them. The 3 set out early in the morning. Mountain paths, tea gardens, rough roads. After about 2 hours, they reached a small market. There was an old shop. People were sitting outside. Inside, a boy was sitting, barely 25 years old. Simple clothes, a wooden cup in his hand. He was leisurely sipping something. Madhavi's father quietly asked his friend, "Is this?" The friend nodded. "This is him." Madhavi could not believe it. He didn't look like a tantric. Her father stepped forward, spoke softly. "Son, we need help." The boy looked up. He stared at Madhavi for a few seconds. Then he said, "There is a problem in the village." Everyone was shocked. No one had told him anything yet. He continued, "There are 2, and they are very angry. Madhavi's heart started pounding. The boy put the cup down, and for the first time looked directly into her eyes. Then he said, "You opened the door." The ground seemed to slip beneath Madhavi's feet. She felt this man knew everything, but he had not yet said yes, and the real matter was still to come. In the previous part, you heard Madhavi and her father went to meet that strange young man who, without saying much, had already stated that there were two powerful forces in the village and that they were extremely angry. He also said, "You opened the door." And hearing this, Madhavi realized that this man was no ordinary person. But the real fear was still to come, because the young man was now ready to go to the village, but before leaving, he said something that made the ground seem to slip from under everyone's feet. There was silence inside the shop for a few moments. Madhavi's father mustered courage and asked, "Son, will you go with us?" The young man remained silent for a while. Then he said softly, "I will go, but what happens? You will not be able to bear it." Madhavi's friend, who had brought them there, said, "We can bear it. Just save the village." The young man let out a faint laugh. "You talk about saving the village. Do you remember what the village did itself?" Everyone fell silent. No one understood what he meant. Then he asked to see Madhavi's mother's hand. Madhavi's father removed the cloth. Seeing the hand, the young man's eyes filled with anger. He immediately said, "Something was removed from this hand." Madhavi's father was startled. "Yes, from near the tree, a black cloth." The young man closed his eyes. He said nothing for a few seconds. Then he said softly, "That wasn't cloth. It was a binding. The one who was bound, you untied her." Everyone in the shop fell silent. Trembling, Madhavi asked, "Who was bound?" The young man opened his eyes, looked directly at her, and said, "Two women. Who were expelled from this village?" Madhavi's father asked. "How do you know all this?" He said, "I don't need to be told. They are telling me themselves." Hearing this, Madhavi's throat went dry. She whispered, "Are they with us?" The young man immediately answered, "Even now." Suddenly, strong wind blew outside the shop. The tin roof rattled violently. Some people panicked. The young man went outside, looked at the sky, and raised his hand. Madhavi clearly saw raindrops falling, but a few seconds later the rain stopped, completely suddenly, as if someone had turned it off. Trembling, Madhavi's father said, "You go with us." The young man nodded silently. "I will go, but remember one thing. What is inside them will not leave easily. Someone will have to pay the price." By noon, they reached the village. The news had already spread. Everyone was outside their homes, as if waiting for someone. The young man stepped into the village and immediately stopped. He closed his eyes. A few seconds later, he said, "Not two, now there are 4. Everyone was terrified. Madhavi's father asked, "4?" He said, "2 outside, 2 inside. And the ones inside are human." Whispers started in the village. People looked at each other. The young man said, "Call everyone. No one will stay inside." In the middle of the village there was an open space. Everyone gathered there, about 200 people. Children, elderly, women, all. Madhavi's mother was also brought. Her hand had turned even darker. The young man placed a seed on the ground. He brought 4 camphor balls, placed them on a plate. Then, without a match, he blew on them, and all 4 caught fire. People stepped back. The wind was completely still, yet the flames rose straight upward. The young man said, "Now listen carefully. If this is to end, 2 people will die." A stir went through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Who?" The young man replied, "The ones in whom they reside." Now the whole village was terrified. No one understood. The young man asked for a lemon. He cut the lemon in half. As soon as he cut it, a red liquid oozed out, like blood. And at that moment, a woman in the crowd screamed, "No, no, don't call me." Everyone saw the woman trembling, her eyes rolling back. On the other side, another woman fell to the ground. Both were screaming. Both voices had changed. Both spoke together. "Do not stop us. We will take revenge." The young man shouted, "Enough!" Suddenly the wind grew strong. Nearby trees bent. The camphor flames blazed higher. Both women writhed on the ground. Then suddenly quiet. The entire village was stunned. For a few seconds, no sound. Then the young man said softly, "Finished." But he immediately looked at the sky, and for the first time fear appeared on his face. He said softly, "No, not yet." Everyone asked, "What happened?" He did not answer. He only said, "What happened, its root still remains, and until it is erased, they will return." people thought it was all over. But that night, what the young man said to Madhavi alone was the most dangerous truth of this story. And that truth was tied to the entire past of the village. In the previous part, you heard, during that ritual in the middle of the village, the powers inside the two women were removed, and for a while, everything was calm. But as he was leaving, the young man had said, "It's not over yet. The root still remains." That night, what he told Madhavi was the real story behind this entire curse. And that is the story I'm going to tell you today. That night, for the first time, there was peace in the village. After many days, people were trying to sleep without fear. At Madhavi's house, everyone was exhausted. Her mother's hand was slowly returning to normal. The swelling was reducing, but the marks were still dark. Around 11 p.m., the young man was sitting outside the house. Madhavi saw he was making something on the ground, like an old symbol. Madhavi quietly approached him. She stood silently for a few moments. Then she said, "Everything is over, right?" Without looking up, the young man replied, "No." Madhavi's heart raced. "Then, why did you say that?" He said, "Because what came out today were only sent by them. They weren't themselves." Madhavi's throat went dry. "Who were they?" The young man looked at her for the first time. There was a strange gleam in his eyes, the ones your village killed while they were alive. Madhavi couldn't understand. She asked, "What do you mean?" The young man took a deep breath and said, "This story is not from today. About 10 years ago, two sisters lived in your village. People said they were different. They lived alone, went into the forest, stayed awake at night. Slowly, rumors spread in the village that they practiced black magic. If someone fell ill, people said it was their doing. If someone's cow died, people said it was their doing. If a crop failed, people said it was their doing. Fear grew, and one day, the villagers decided they would be expelled from the village." Madhavi listened carefully. The young man continued, "They were taken outside the village to that old tree. Their hands were tied. They were humiliated in front of everyone, and told, 'If you ever come back, we will burn you alive.'" Madhavi's hands grew cold. She said, "Then," the young man said, "then they didn't leave. They stayed there, but not like humans. They swore. The day they get a chance, they will destroy the entire village." Madhavi asked quietly, "When did they get the chance?" The young man answered, "The day they were called." Madhavi suddenly remembered. The banyan tree, the wedding procession, 2 girls. She shivered and said, "That the same day." The young man nodded. "They needed permission to enter. And they got it, when that man said, 'Let's go.'" Fear filled Madhavi's eyes. "Then, the cloth on the tree," the young man said, "to completely stop them from coming. An old sage had bound them, but your mother." Madhavi closed her eyes, removed that cloth. They remained silent for a while. The wind was cold. A dog barked in the distance. Madhavi asked softly, "Now, what will happen?" The young man did not answer. After a while, he said, "Now they will not come directly. But as long as this village exists here, their anger will remain here too." Madhavi was scared. "So what should we do?" The young man completed the symbol on the ground, then said, "Remember, never open the door for an unknown voice. Never touch anything left near a tree, and never underestimate anyone you have humiliated." The next morning, the young man left without saying a word. No one saw him go. Only the symbol he made remained on the ground for a while, then vanished with the wind. Gradually, everything in the village began to return to normal. The sick recovered. The animals recovered. Madhavi's mother's hand healed within 2 months. But one thing never changed. Even today, no one in that village opens their door after nightfall. And the old tree outside the village, no one passes it alone. Because many people have even now seen through the mist 2 women standing, and they softly ask, "Will you let us come inside?" The most terrifying truth of this story was not that there were spirits. The most terrifying truth was, no one had called them. The village itself had made them with hatred. And the day humans turn someone into a monster, that is the day the curse begins.